Hey guys, my name's Eki, and today we're going to go over an in-depth guide of the Necromancer. First, we're going to go over the pros and the cons. Obviously, these are my pros and cons. I feel everybody's going to have a different set of pros and cons. Here's mine. A couple of the pros. I feel like the class is has a lot of survivability, and that's mainly because of the Lich form you get. And that's this form right here. This is your Lich form. It lasts for a different amount of times depending on how much energy you have. And that's that bar down below, the bar that you see that says 0 out of 100. 0, it'll last for about 3 to 4 seconds. 50 will last to about 5 to 7 seconds, and 100 it'll last about 9 to 10 seconds. So be mindful of that. I feel like that is definitely a pro. Survivability is a good thing that the Necromancer is able to maintain. Another thing that they also have is pets. They're the only class that has pets. I'm going to consider that a pro because one, I love the idea of pets, and two, it can kind of help mitigate damage depending on what pet you use. Some of the cons that you'll hear a lot of people say are it's low DPS in terms of the damage dealer classes in the game, and the mobility is somewhat reduced compared to a lot of the other classes. Their dash isn't really far. They don't really have a lot of mobility in terms of the DPS classes in the game. Obviously, you can get things that change that, but as a starter class, when you start playing it, you don't have many of the abilities unless you've obviously worked on your atlas and gotten those things. Next thing we're going to talk about is the skills. We're going to get familiar with the skills, and then we'll go in depth on like a PvP and a PvE spec or skill sets that are most common for most players. You'll see up here, you'll notice that you have your basic stance, your summoning stance, and your lich stance. We'll talk about all three of these in depth. But first we're going to talk about this basic stance. So the first thing you're going to notice is that you have your left click, also known as an auto attack, and it builds up into 3 combos. First one does a little bit of damage, not too much, nothing to be surprised about. Your second one, Plague Strike, does a little bit more damage, and then your third one does the most damage. Obviously, it's the last combo in your combo, the last step in your combo, and it also activates your Impulse Charge. Impulse Charge just gives you that bonus damage. If you're doing like a Valor build, a Valor Temper build, that this ability will do extra damage. Second skill we're going to talk about is your Cursed Land. It will cause like the ground to turn purple, and you'll get these hands. Also notice that it took 3,410 HP away from me. Most of the skills that you're going to do as a Necromancer are going to cause you to take some sort of HP, not all of them, but most of them. So keep that in mind when you're casting some of your abilities. It's one of those things. You can kind of consider that a con as well, just because you've got to maintain that aspect of this class. Next skill we're actually going to go over here to the actual, the ones that you select. We're going to start with the first row, Rift of Horror. I have this ability selected because I generally like it over the Grave ability. Rift of Horror will put a line on the ground that spews out horrors, and anything that gets near it, it'll cause it to run away and panic for about 4 seconds. It also does damage, so it works really well in combination with the Cursed Land if you use it with the Cyclone to keep the monsters in that area while doing damage. And we'll kind of get a good look at that. We'll get a good look at that right here. You run up to the monster, you hit it, and it kind of causes them to either stay there and then run away in fear, just like that. And it does, quite a bit of damage. I generally like it over the Grave, and I think it works really, really well. So, all right, the next ability we're going to talk about. Let me get the rest of these things dead. Next ability we're going to talk about is the Volley of Darkness. So, Volley of Darkness is a ranged AoE-ish ability that regenerates life in the Lich stance. So you can't use it as a basic ability. This is an ability you use in the Lich form. I favor this over the Reaper Sweep because Reaper Sweep is obviously one, melee oriented, and two, melee oriented. You have to be in melee range to actually hit something. It has a pretty big area of effect, but if people want in PvP know your ability set and they see you start to do Reaper Sweep, they're just going to get away from you as fast as possible, so you can't regenerate HP. With this ability, you got more range. Yeah, it's a 0.2 second cooldown, which is like standard global cooldown for this class, but it's a range ability, so that's something that you want to keep into consideration when selecting your Reaper abilities. We'll look at that ability a little bit later when we get into combat. The next set we have Wall of Souls and Wall of Pain. I generally favor Wall of Souls, and it's because it reduces the damage that is done to you by 28%. So, and it inflicts 125% more damage if it hits more than one target. So you compare that to the Wall of Pain. Wall of Pain, yeah, it does a little bit more damage, but the damage reduction you get from Wall of Souls adds to your survivability. And that ability looks like this. It's got a big range. You just slice across the ground and you push it forward, and it goes for looks like about 40 yards. Could be a little bit longer. Great ability for damage mitigation. Next ability sets we're going to talk about is the Shield of Banished and the Possession. So this is generally going to be left up to your decision on one, do you want to do more damage, or two, do you want to live longer? So this will increase the damage you do with your pet by 66%, and this will give you a shield. Obviously it takes your pet away, it'll kill your pet, so you get a shield for 32% of your maximum health. So one, this is good if you want to live, and two, this is good if you want to live. So now we're going to go into the abilities that aren't on this window right here, the ones that you get from unlocking in the Atlas. Skull Throw. Skull Throw is, I would consider a burst ability. It has a chance to reset cooldown, 20% chance to reset cooldown. It costs 10% HP to use, so keep that in mind. But it's a good all-around ability. It's really good in PvP when you combine it with Ancient Sorcery. That increased 21% damage when you hit them with the skull. So if you plan on doing PvP, I would definitely pick up Ancient Sorcery. The next ability we're going to talk about is Shadow of the Past. This ability right here is the ability you're always going to do first before combat starts, or when combat starts, to reduce the amount of damage you take, one, and two, to get off the most amount of skills that you can get off prior to activating your first initial Lich form. And that ability looks like this. You hit it once, and you can kind of see it summons a statue there. But if I summon an enemy, obviously my HP would be reduced, and when I go back to my statue, it's going to go back to full HP. And we'll kind of take a look at that again here in 20 seconds. I'll have to fast forward that so we can see it a little bit quicker. Like I was saying, this ability is an ability you're going to want to use from the start of the battle. We'll go ahead and target this guy so you can get a better look at it in about 5 seconds. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to cast my statue, and then we're going to summon a monster, and you're going to notice my HP is going to be reduced. We'll hit Z, we'll do the single target monster, and then we'll throw a skull out too. just so you can see 85,000 HP. When I go back to my statue, bam, my HP is back to full. We'll run up here, we'll fear him, and then we'll try and reduce some of this damage and keep him in this middle section right here. So there's that. It's really good for keeping your HP at full when you need to. So we need to get rid of these monsters here real quick. We'll take an enemy to get my shield. I don't want to die in here. Alright, so there we go. There is the statue, also known as Shadow of the Past. Really great ability, and especially when you combine it with the Beyond talent. We'll go into talents a little bit later, but yes, really good combination with the Beyond talent. Then you got your ghostly allies. This is going to be where you go into summoning stance and you can kind of take a look at what each ability does or each summon does. Your ghostly vipers, generalized, they are your tank pet. Essentially, they try and pull threat away from you. So if you need to mitigate some damage, you use your ghostly vipers and you can combine them with the cursed viper to, 1, put a dot on the monster or enemy when they move, and 2, slow them down dramatically. Your next summon you're going to get is the ghostly mantid. This ability or pet is considered your AoE pet. They do your AoE damage, big burst of AoE damage. Also, they take HP. All your pets take HP. So, like I said earlier, most of your stuff's going to take your HP. So just keep that in mind. All of these have a 40-second cooldown, minus your vipers. Your third ability, or third summon, is going to be that Ghastly Carrion. This is a single target pet, and we'll show these off a little bit later, but that just gives you a generalized idea of what each pet does. 1, 2, 3. Next ability we have is I already talked about the shield, is your Ghostly Flow. This is your ultimate ability. One really good thing about this ability is it resets the cooldown of your Lich form. So once you do Lich form, you'll see here, I'll do Lich, I'm going to pop 3, and there's that 29-second skull you see down there. That is saying I can't do Lich for another 22 seconds, but if I pop my Ghastly Flow, you see it resets that timer all the way back down to 0. And it lets me know that, hey, I'm good to go again, and I can pop the Lich form just like that. So keep that in mind if you're ever in a bind and you need to spawn your Lich. That is definitely the way to go. Now we're going to try not to die here, and we're going to die. Too many monsters. This is one of the reasons I hate this area, because you die if you pull too many monsters. But yeah, so keep that in mind. Like I was saying, guys, make sure you're aware of what your skills do. We're gonna try and kill the rest of these without dying. These things hit me kind of hard. We might die again, but it's okay. We'll use it. We'll go into Lich form. There we go. So we got rid of those. Alright, next thing we're going to talk about is the talents. I'll tell you, give you a generalized idea on what is common and what's based for PvP, just so you have a generalized idea. I don't think that there's one perfect build that you can do, but you know, people might tell you otherwise. So here we go. You have accelerated decomposition. Most necromancers are going to tell you that this is a guaranteed. You need to have this skill no matter what build you're doing, PvP or PvE, just because your dots play is one of the hardest hitting dots you have. So that's a guaranteed ability. Next, you have your Ancient Sorcery. If you're doing PvP, this is guaranteed. You're going to want to use that ability. 21% more damage in PvP if you throw the skull at them. Must have in PvP. Then you got your Barrier. Shield of the Banished will make you immune to movement restricting effects. This is also, I feel, good in PvP. There is some monsters you will encounter that will make you immobile. That can help you with that. I don't ever take it. I don't really find a need for it, but if you feel like you need it, go for it. Then we got Searing Pain. This makes your Ritual Strike inflict 150%. That is your top third combo ability. So 150% more damage from Searing Pain. Cyclone, this is also an ability I would say is not staple, but a good one to go with if you're trying to stay alive. Makes all those monsters get pulled back into the middle. Ghostly Shroud, if you're going to be using Possession, which increases the damage of your pets, this ability will allow you to heal them and remove any type of control effect they have. Funeral Lament is a good execution ability that increases the plague, critical damage by plague, which is your dot, by 70%. It's an okay ability. It used to be bugged. I don't know if it still is, but the percentages used to continue to stack, and you'd be able to get like over 100,000 damage crits. So I don't know if that's bugged. I haven't really tried it since, but there's that ability. Cemetery, if you're going to be using Grave, I would recommend getting Cemetery just because it reduces the cooldown and it drags them to your cursed land. Next ability is the Fast Recovery. A lot of people like this ability because it makes you regenerate HP and it reduces incoming traumatic damage. I don't generally take it, but if you're out of combat, that's a good ability to have if you like to regenerate fast. I can see this being good in PvP. If you get out of combat quick enough, then you can regenerate all your HP back, and it would seem efficient and effective. Blood Poisoning. This ability, it doesn't really specify what ability it goes with, but if you look at your Lich stance, it's going to be synergized with your left click in Lich form, and this applies the poison dot that you're going to see when you're left clicking in the Lich form. This makes it last longer. So if you like the dots to last longer, get that ability. I think it's okay. I don't really recommend it, but if you want to use that ability, by all means, use it. Vial of Death. Each Reaper Sweep will give you protection against damage by 33% for 2 seconds, and can be stacked up to 100%. I don't find this ability to be efficient or effective because even if you're taking damage in Lich form, it only lasts for 2 seconds, and yes, it absorbs 100%, but your Lich form doesn't last long enough for it to be effective, so I feel like it's a waste of a talent. But if you want to test it out for yourself, you can go ahead and do that. Torments of Hell. I like this ability because it makes, the talent, it makes your damage crit for 5 seconds, and it seems to go really well, not only in PvP, but in PvE as well. Then you have Hungry Skulls. This will, I feel, is a better version of Vial of Death, because 1, it's ranged, and 2, it also gives you a shield, and it's based off of your HP. So if you have an HP build going on, if you're Strength, Luck, Crit, and HP, or Strength, Luck, Accuracy, HP, and this will be very efficient in terms of your Lich form. Wall of Flames, this adds a dot to the Wall of Pain and Wall of Souls. I don't really use it. I feel like the 2 seconds isn't long enough for the damage. If it was maybe 3 to 5 seconds, I'd consider it. But the upkeep time would be ridiculous on this. Cursed Vipers makes your Vipers do damage when monsters move, and it slows them. I find this to be really good in PvP if you're trying to peel, but that'll be up to you. Rigor. I also think that this ability is a wasted talent, only because your Ghastly Flow is an 8-minute, 24-second cooldown, and just to slow and immobilize someone for 15 seconds for every 8 minutes, I don't find it to be effective or efficient by any means. Next, we have Beyond. Another ability I would say is almost guaranteed and mandatory, because your Shadow Past is going to be the ability that keeps you alive, not only longer, but more often. I guess that's one and the same thing, but that's okay. Ritual Fire, I go with because it's your second dot. Well, consider your first dot. It's the AoE version And it does, you know, quite a bit of damage, and I just like doing damage, so we went with that. Then we have Vampirism. I always feel like I can never get enough HP when I'm in Lich form, so I feel like the extra 12%, even though it's a small portion, is more than enough. Then you have the Veil of Oblivion. This increases the range of your Wall of Pain and your Wall of Souls, and it also removes negative effects from allies. I feel like this could be really good in PvP, as well as PvE if you're dealing with monsters that give debuffs or negative effects. So that goes over that. Next, we're going to go over the order and the provinces, just so you guys get a generalized idea of what I'm using. Obviously, you don't have to use these. This is just what I recommend. And you can switch and swap out whichever ones you want depending on your stat build. But for me, I'm going to go with the crit. Accuracy and temper are also good alternatives depending on your ring build. Second one, I'm going to go with accuracy. Violence is good for Necromancers because you're usually always below 50% HP. I would say over half of the time. And then you have range damage is a good one too. I would always go with the accuracy though. Accuracy is a solid increase in damage. On this third one, we have crit chance and crushing blows. Crushing blows I find is a more damage increase over the crit chance, just because it has a chance to double your base damage, which is always good. Obviously crit's good as well, but you can experiment with that. I prefer crushing blows. Fourth tempo, we have temper, violence, and range damage. I have the range damage selected because I'm not a temper build right now. I could go with the violence, but I haven't gotten it up enough to where it makes me want to change. Fifth one, we go with accuracy. You could also go with the temper. Some people will do adaptation as well, but I like the accuracy. Next one, we're going with the crit chance. Solidity is also good. It increases your might, but I like the crit chance. Then we got the critical chance and the crushing blows. I want the crushing blows again. And solidity for the increase in might based off of my stamina. Most people you'll see go with adaptation. Adaptation is really good for survivability, and it reduces damage. So if you want to live longer, definitely go with the adaptation. I'm going with the solidity right now just because I want the bonus damage. Next, we're going to talk about the stats, guys. Stats are important, and I can't stress enough that you need to have the right rings, depending on your build, to do the most amount of damage. You can see right here, my rings aren't perfect, but I'm working on getting them to the stats that I want. And these are the 4 stats you're going to want. This is the best ring I can give you. For an example, it's strength, luck, accuracy, crit. This is the ideal ring you want in every slot if you're doing a strength luck build. You will see some necromancers running valor temper, so strength, valor, temper, or anything with valor and temper on it. You want the temper to be about 40 or 50% to be efficient, and you can be running a good valor temper build. And on my amulets, ideally I would like Skull Throw and Plague, or Plague and Hellfire, just because those are your 2 dots, and who wouldn't want to do more damage with dots, you know? So you have the Plague and the Skull Throw for me on this one. Skull Throw, Hellfire, and Skull Throw. I haven't really been lucky in terms of getting the ones that I want, but that's what I have there. Your additional weapon, you're going to want to go. I go with the Shadow of the Past amulet, just because it, 1, adds survivability, and 2, it's really good in PvP and PvE to throw monsters away from you. It confuses them. Just a really good alternative. It's like having a bonus skill or talent equipped. My main weapon is probably the worst weapon you could probably have as a Necromancer, unless you like using carrions. I would recommend something else. I've just been unlucky to get a better weapon. So that'll about do it for the stats and the skills. In terms of combat, we can go over rotation and elaborate a little bit more about what I've been talking about. So like I said, You're always going to want to start with your 4, which is your statue. Unless you have a re-keybound, you'll switch and go into your summon, and you'll throw out your summon and go back to your statue to regenerate all your HP, just like that. So that's how you would do that, and that's your opener. In terms of AoEing monsters with more than, I would say, 2 or 3, I start with the hands, and then I do Hellfire, just like that. Open with Hellfire, and you can at least kill one, and then drop the body on top of them. And if one is still living, you could do Plague. Plague will finish it off. That's how I generally start on a pack of more than 2 or 3. So it'll look something like this. I'm going to open with statues, summon my AoE pet, drop the ground grabber is what I'm going to call it, go back, and we're going to continue to just AoE as much as we can. I don't think that there's a specific set rotation other than keeping your dots up on single target bosses. And I can explain that a little bit too. We're probably going to die right here because these monsters hurt. We'll go into Lich form and we'll try and burn some of these down. We'll kill this guy too. So you can see the more dots you have on the boss, you see I have 6 here, the more it's going to, 1, heal me in, over time, and 2, I'm not going to die from this thing. So you saw right there, I was going to die, and I casted my ultimate, and boom, they're dead. So for single target rotations, you're going to want to do a rotation similar to this. You're going to want to open, or regenerate my HP here real quick. You're going to open with a statue always, so that's never going to change. You're always going to open with statue, and I have AoE here, so I'll just open with the summon, and then we'll start with Plague and Hellfire. I don't want these things getting near me, and then you'll just keep rotating these 2 or 3 dots that you have. Hellfire and Plague, you want to keep them up as much as possible, and there. So he didn't really touch me. On a single target, you want to make sure you're maintaining your Plague and your Hellfire as much as possible while staying away from the monster. If you're having issues with keeping monsters off of you, you always need to remember you have that option to pull out your carrions. So keep that in mind. These definitely play a huge role in the Necromancer. I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. I'll be making a guide for each class that I master. Next is going to be the Warlock guide, so stay tuned for that. If you guys like this guide, please hit that follow button. Also, I stream on Twitch, so make sure if you guys want to check that out, go for it. I will see you guys in the next video. I appreciate it. Have a great day, guys.